Welcome to this series of videos on gender-sensitive project implementation in a rural context. My name is Elna and I'm a consultant with Resilience. Over the past few months, I've conducted a gender analysis for one of our irrigation projects in rural Mozambique. This series of videos is a summary of the framework that I've used for the gender analysis, the methodology, the results, and some practical tools and recommendations for future project design and implementation in an agricultural context. This is the fifth and last video of the series. I will further elaborate on practical tools and recommendations for project design and implementation with a focus on gender inclusion. What we took most from our research in the field is that women want to become commercial farmers. They long for stability in income and they see many benefits for the well-being of their families if they have this financial stability. So they would say that that is their largest need. Often, although heard when talking about being a commercial farmer, is that the fields owned would be too small. However, in reality, we see that it is possible to commercialize already with 0.05 hectares of horticulture and that you don't need a large amount of money to invest, but it is also possible with little investment. We actually see that training farmers who with smaller fields allows them to learn and to grow eventually into commercialization. And one of the most important tools is not necessarily the technology, but the availability of agricultural knowledge. And so we've seen from our project that agronomic and irrigation knowledge and market linkages are needed in order for a farmer to be able to commercialize. More specifically, how to be a facilitator in this commercialization is by focusing on these financial needs. And the first one that we think is very beneficial to include is in Mozambique, especially is Poupança groups, which are local saving groups between families or in the community where they save the money but also allow for farmers to invest. And so in reality, Poupança groups are often with women only, or they are with a surplus of women. And it is also something that is known and that husbands will allow their wives to participate in. Then the money generated from Poupança groups is often with a bit smaller amounts. And so if it is something that a woman does, she will also be allowed to keep the money herself. However, one constraint with the Poupança groups is that if you have the money, you still need to have the knowledge on how to spend it or how to invest it again. And so we would advise to combine these Poupança groups together with training on financial budgets, by which you include not only agricultural production, but also domestic financial responsibilities, such as education or spending on food. Then another recommendation links to the need of having a stability in customers. And in our project, we incorporate an intermediate person who links the market to the farmer, which saves a lot of time for the farmers. And as we've learned, time is very precious. And then it also secures customers by having fixed prices for good quality of projects. And so the farmer has the security of once the production is set, also knowing that everything will be sold. Another advantage is that there's no need to have their own means of transport, as this is already provided. And so access to transport is not a concern anymore. And then lastly, as a facilitator, we would advise to place emphasis on the storing of projects and selling these products off-season, since by selling off-season you can sell when market prices are high, and as a farmer you can therefore fill a gap in the market, which gives you a unique position and also gives you a security of money to be generated. However, in order to reach these goals, it is necessary to adapt your training approach. And by that we mean that it asks something of your technicians, it asks something of your training, and it also asks something of the inclusion of farmers and of the technologies that you work with. So starting with technicians, we asked farmers whether it was possible for female farmers, solely female farmers, to work with male technicians. And they often told us that it's not really a problem. However, when asking if they have a preference for female technicians or a male technician, they often told us that they perceive female technicians to be more patient. They said that female technicians often take more time, and they also feel more confident when interacting with female technicians, as they feel that another woman is able to empathize with their situation. I don't want to say that male technicians don't have the same qualities or are not able to reach that. I just mean that this might imply for male technicians to adjust their working style for a little bit. So to take more time, to allow for questions to be asked, and also again going from the tips given in the beginning, it is very important to visualize, to speak the local language, and also to set examples and to use examples, so to go by other farmers' fields and to illustrate the effect of the agricultural training to be given. Then the second point is the regularity in place and timing of trainings. As we already explained, that it is very important to adjust to the time availability of female farmers if you want to include them in your trainings. And so in our project, we noticed that they often said that it was beneficial to give trainings on Fridays between 7 and 9, as they would have the time to actually participate, since often Fridays are the days where they do most of the household duties. And early in the morning, they are more flexible in making a new division between household responsibilities and working on the field. Then, when working with female farmers, it is very important to set expectations to their husbands. So as a project, don't disregard the husbands, but include them actually and inform them. What are your objectives? What do you expect from the project? So that you build trust between you and the farmers, and that they know your intentions. And then lastly, we could also incorporate the needs and priorities of farmers into the practices that we use or that we teach. So for instance, having a look at the time intensity of our technologies, and should we perhaps include more time-saving technologies? And also the amount of money needed to invest in the practices that we offer. Are they all very capital intensive practices, or should we also include some low cost practices in order to reach female farmers who can manage their finances but often manage finances in smaller amounts? Then more project general, we would say that to be successfully gender transformative as a project, you need to make it a priority and you need to take the time. This starts already with project analysis and project design. And as a first point, to take priority and take priority for gender objectives in your budget, in your planning, and in your project indicators. And so we would advise to go into the field, perform a situational analysis that would support your project formulation. And by making it a situational analysis instead of fully focusing on gender, it could be something done by everyone. You don't necessarily need a gender expert to go into the field and to include your farmers asking about their constraints and their needs and priorities. However, the most important is to use a participatory approach. So really engage with your farmers, include them, and do it together. And then look again to your log frame and to your successes, and ask yourself the questions whether they are really adapted to the farmer's needs and priorities, or whether you should redefine them. Go back into your log frame, use their skills, have a conversation together with your project team on where you want the slides to be, and redefine your successes in order for your project to be fully successful, fully adaptive. In doing so, this also means that it needs to be a priority for everyone involved in your project. So it will be a priority for you as project designer, but also for your technicians, for the farmers included, knowing that they are all included and all participating, but also for your donors. Make sure that they understand why you want to take a part of your budget for gender objectives. What is the need? What is the advantage of it? And how does it improve your project successes? And then lastly, for project implementation and project monitoring, evaluation and learning, we would like to emphasize how the importance of your choices and how they lead to gender transformative changes. So for instance, we emphasized on the definition of your project beneficiaries, as this is very important for who are your champion farmers. And the inclusion of your champion farmers are the farmers that set an example to other farmers again. And so by being aware of who these champions are, you are also aware of the norms and values that they transfer to others. So in summary, in the implementation of your project, we would advise to highlight the existing successes in the communities that are already there and to use them as a definition of success. And then in your monitoring and evaluation, you can go back to how this would then affect, for instance, education, nutritional values. Thank you very much for watching to our series on gender-sensitive project implementation in a rural context. We hope that you've learned new tips, new tools for your own project design and implementation. We would very much like to come in touch with you to further elaborate on our results, but also to keep the dialogue on gender-inclusive project implementation going, as we can learn a lot from each other. Perhaps until soon. Bye.